I'd like to thank Peter and the conference organization team for the kind invitation and for having me here. In this talk, which is a joint paper with Mr. Salah Hassan, who is sitting over there, the head of the Fujairah Tourism and Antiquities Authority, I will present you the results of our 2016 excavation in Qidfah 3 by the Fujairah German Archaeological Project. So first I will present you the scientific implementation of the FGAP, our project, and afterwards I will talk in detail about the excavations in Qidfah, including our latest radiocarbon dates, architectural studies, and finds. Another topic I will talk about is the archaeological survey we did in Qidfah, and in the end it's about settlement continuity and heritage management. So in 2015, the Fujairah German Archaeological Project was founded in cooperation of Fujairah Tourism and Antiquities Authority and the Oriental Department of the German Archaeological Institute under the direction of Professor Ricardo Eichmann and Christina Pfeiffer, who is sitting over there as well. The Fujairah Tourism and Antiquities Authority is since the 1980s responsible for the archaeological fieldwork, the documentation and conservation of Fujairah's cultural heritage. The joint project of the FGAP contains archaeological fieldwork as well as a large-scale survey that was carried out to detect potential Bronze Age settlements in naturally favored zones in Fujairah's beautiful wadis. So in spring 2016, the initial season started with the re-excavation of Qidfah 3, aiming for documentation, consolidation, and conservation of the site. So the modern town of Qidfah, which you see here in the map, is located in the emirate of Fujairah, about 2 kilometers from the coastline and about 20 kilometers north of Fujairah city. Given the water runoff from the northern end of the Hajar mountain range and the proximity to the shore in combination with a high groundwater level, settling was favorable for humans since antiquity here. The town's infrastructure, here's a Google Earth image, is characterized by a line of shops along the road and an adjacent parking area in combination with houses in the south, gardens and palm groves in the north and northeast. So, since the mid-1980s, 4 archaeological sites are known and partly excavated. They are labeled Qidfah 1 to 4. The sites Qidfah 1 and Qidfah 2 is still unexcavated, and 4 are large U-shaped tombs, whereas Qidfah 3 is a domestic site. So here on the left, you see the U or horse-shaped tomb Qidfah 1 with Iron Age pottery and some bronze vessels found there, and here Qidfah 4 to the right with Wadi Suk associated spouted jars from funeral contexts. So Qidfah 4 has been located by the team of the Al Ain Museum in 1986 when they were excavating the tomb Qidfah 1. The site was properly excavated then in 1995 by the local team of the Fujairah Museum in cooperation with Al Ain. So now in 2016, anthropologist Emanuele Petiti of our team analyzed and excavated human bone assemblages of these tombs. In both Qidfah 1 and 4, all ages and sex classes are represented, and individuals were buried over a long time span in these tombs. They show a rather robust constitution and were most likely involved in heavy work. Further information will be presented to you later by Christina Pfeiffer. So the site of Qidfah 3 was first excavated during the field season in 1995 under the direction of the Al Ain Antiquities Authority, revealing stone architecture with several occupational layers. Taking the pottery finds into consideration, it was assumed that we are dealing here with a very rare case of second millennium Bronze Age architecture, which is not so common on the eastern coast of the peninsula, which is then associated with the Wadi Suk period. The results remain unpublished. So in 2016, we began with the cleaning of a large rectangular trench of the old excavation to document the archaeological architectural remains and their stratigraphy. There is it. You see the rectangular roof on top of the trench. So this is after cleaning. This large Z-shaped structure became visible. Here is the orthophoto and a stone plan. And at the bottom in the south, we opened another small trench, which is called Trench 3, because Trench 2 is from the old excavation. You can see it over here. That was a test trench that we cleaned as well. So Trench 1 is the large one, and Trench 3 is the adjacent one in the south. So in this Trench 1, we were able to identify 6 occupational and abandonment phases, from which I will present you phases 6 and 4 in this presentation. Phase 6 was newly excavated in 2016 and is the lowermost occupational phase so far in Qidfah. So phase 6 is characterized by an area connected to pyrotechnical activity that is displayed in the high amount of fire installations, ash and burned stones. Patches of a trampled surface on top of the natural wadi bed were found in the south. You can see it here. One installation over here consists of 2 oval shallow bowls, and a series of smaller ones was found nearby. So some here and some furthermore in the north, not in this picture. Since both phases are divided by a 30 to 40 centimeter thick layer of fluvial sediments indicating an abandonment phase, you can see this over here, those installations are not connected to the aforementioned architecture. So, sorry, the bowls of this installation were both deliberately filled with 2 layers of burned, partly fire-cracked stones that cover a thin ash layer at the bottom. The pits itself are 80 centimeter in diameter and were cut about 20 centimeter into the wadi bed. Afterwards, they were lined with a compacted silt mortar, which has also been applied between these 2 pits. You can see it here in the detail. So the ash fill mixed with a lot of charcoal of these pits was sampled. We did flotation, and planned is also macrobotanical and phytolith analysis, but this is still in progress. For radiocarbon dating, the charcoal samples were processed by the Radiocarbon lab in Poznan and revealed in surprisingly old age for this newly excavated lowermost layer. So all 4 samples date to the early Bronze Age between 2300 and 2200 calibrated BCE, also known as referred to the so-called Anar period. And after the before-mentioned abandonment phase, the massive stone structure was constructed. What we first thought to be a Z-shaped structure turned out to be a multi-phased building. A large rectangular structure with an entrance in the west. You can see the entrance here. You can see the entrance there, yes. A large rectangular structure. Since the southwestern wall abuts this structure, it is associated with a younger phase. I will come to this point later. Here you see again a slide of the entrance here and the older wall of this construction. So the architecture is characterized by double-faced walls that are filled with smaller stones. Although the bases of the walls, you see them there in detail, consists of large worked and very well-leveled boulders, no foundation was found. So the walls were built directly on top of these loose heterogeneous sediments that cover the fire installations of phase 6. The bonding of the walls point to their construction being one event, visible here The interior wall faces of the structure were plastered with silty vegetal tempered mud. Remains of a floor were found in the northwestern corner of the structure, seen here, and here the mud mortar. This is a detail of the doorway. It consists of a 10 centimeter high threshold, formed also by this line of stones, and it leads to the building's interior and had a trampled surface as well. We have also an exterior surface abutting the northern wall, here, and the rest of it was unfortunately not preserved. We assume that the stone walls were built as a foundation of the building's superstructure that in turn consisted of organic materials. The high abundance of the silty material within the trench also points to an extensive use of plaster or maybe even pissé walls. So, stratigraphically younger than this rectangular structure are two walls here in the west, abutting the structure, and a curved row of stones, more than a wall, is roughly running northeast-southwest through both trenches, separating two different surfaces from each other. And 4 post holes, 2 there and 2 there, also point to the assumption of a combination of both organic and stone architecture. Here you see a detail of the wall built in a very similar way, warty cobbles and some smaller stones, building a double-faced wall here, and also very well leveled and nicely worked. Here is the doorway that is narrowed in the later phase as well, indicating by this line of stones. So we can imagine that the surface of the whole building was somewhat higher in this younger phase. Now, let me briefly introduce Trench 3, that is located to the south of Trench 1. Since excavation started here with the topsoil, we were able to study the uppermost layers of the site and find a stratigraphical connection to the faces in Trench 1. The curved row of stones and the associated post holes were covered with over 1 meter of sediment layers. This was very interesting for the geomorphology. So the thick packages of layers in Trench 3 were remarked as rare features displaying a singular stratigraphic situation, since alluvial and fluvial sediments appeared together. Max Engel of our team is a geomorphologist from the University of Köln, and he observed I cite enigmatic Holocene marine deposits inside Qidfah's archaeological sequence, thus covering archaeological layers at an elevation of 9 to 10 meters above the present-day mean sea level. Furthermore, we were able to identify a multi-layered sedimentation within an old wadi channel, characterized by its clear edges and the tub-shaped form cutting into the horizontal layers. In contrast, in the southern section of Trench 1, a normal layering pattern of marine sediments was defined on the basis of the high density of marine mollusks there. So this brings up several key questions concerning the sea level and coastline 4,000 years ago, which I cannot answer here because I'm not a geomorphologist, but that's a lot to do in future research. The finds reflect domestic activities. Groundstone tools such as grinders, pestles, and stone balls are present, as well as mollusk shells used as containers. A coarse handmade cooking ware with traces of soot is quite present within the pottery assemblage. One example is displayed here at the bottom. Few sherds were reused as tools for scraping and polishing. One example here. The Bronze Age pottery is represented by Wadi Souk-style beakers there and jars, but also Iron Age black on red pottery and large water jars, like similar to the one in your conference program, are present. So, in addition to our excavations, we surveyed the northeastern part of Qidfah as well. A local man told us that the undulating roads hide archaeological sites. You can see the road is going up and down again, which is for this area not quite typical. Several pottery and groundstone findings support this assumption. Here you can see some Qidfah ware shirts and a stone tool made of a very white raw material, perhaps quartz. So we identified 3 sites that all lie on private property and were therefore inaccessible to us. But glimpsing through walls and fences revealed several mounds and graveyards, indicating settlement activity going at least back to Islamic periods. Maybe we have also older deposits below, which would be clarified by archaeological excavations, of course. After our excavations in Qidfah, the roof was renewed and extended by Fujairah Tourism and Antiquities Authority. Due to the fragility of the archaeological remains, we decided to cover them up with geotextile, stabilize the walls with sandbags, and backfill the trench. A large sign informs the residents about the site that is protected by a fence. So to conclude, the outstanding fact that in Qidfah we can find over 4,000 years of human activity. Archaeological remains of the early to late Bronze Age, the Iron Age, Islamic periods, and the modern-day settlement were recorded. This brings challenging requirements to heritage management, so a combination of field work, including detailed recording, documentation, and conservation, is needed. But also the communication with the public and education should be essential factors that, in the end, contribute to the protection of archaeological sites. So, thank you for your attention.